It's not clear whether medical staff had begun to induce the birth. Shortly before 6 a.m, Kate arrived with William at a back entrance to St Mary's Hospital. At 7:30, Kensington Palace issued this statement. Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Cambridge has been admitted this morning to St Mary's Hospital, Paddington, London, in the early stages of labour. Within moments, the media who've gathered from around the world were relaying the news.
And I think it's safe to say that the great Kate wait is over.
Just around dawn this morning, the Duchess of Cambridge accompanied...
Good morning, America. Breaking right now, the Duchess of Cambridge in labour.
Interest in this birth is considerable. The coverage has been intense and ongoing.
Our team is live in London with the very latest on Kate's condition.
The normally rather nondescript street near London's Paddington Station was filling by the minute. Bedlam on one side, with the media replaying the few known facts, while on the other, inside the private and now heavily guarded Lindo wing of the hospital, a medical team led by the royal gynecologists Marcus Setchell on the right here and Alan Farthing were treating their patient. As they prepared the way for the birth, good wishes were being sent, led by the Prime Minister.
Well, obviously, best wishes to them, a very exciting occasion, and the whole country is excited with them, so everyone's hoping for the best.
In York, the Prince of Wales was continuing with business as usual and waiting for news, just like everyone else.
Thank you very much.
It's for the baby.
Right, but I'll see what I can do. She hasn't quite appeared yet.
6 is going to appear in 6 hours' time.
6, I believe you might be right.
The Queen returned to Buckingham Palace from her weekend at Windsor, close at hand in case she chooses to visit the hospital to see a great-grandchild which, when born, will secure the direct line of succession in decades to come.
This is an historic moment for the royal family. It's the first time since the days of Queen Victoria when there will be 3 direct heirs alive at the same time as the monarch, Elizabeth II, Prince Charles, Prince William, and now the new baby.
Outside the hospital, a good many hours now since Kate had been admitted, and people were still waiting and speculating. Would it be a boy or a girl?
And it's going to be a girl. Yeah, I predict that. So yeah, quite excited.
I'd say a little boy. Yeah, a little boy.
I still say it's a boy. I still say it's a boy because my firstborn was a boy and he was late.
We will know all in good time, when those who are so disposed in Britain and the 15 other countries, of which the British King or Queen is head of state, will have an opportunity to celebrate the birth of a future monarch.
So indeed, a nation, indeed, people around the world waiting then for news of that baby who will be third in line to the throne. Nick, just give us a sense of the mood there after today.
Patient, expectant, some people quite excited. It is now 11 hours since we've heard anything, since that statement at 7:30 this morning when we were told that things were progressing normally. We were told at 7:30 this morning that she was in the early stages of pregnancy. I'm not quite sure how they would define things now, but since 7:30 this morning, silence. Now, should there be any concern about a labour of this length, the experts say absolutely not. They say it's perfectly normal, particularly in the case of a first-time mother. We recall, of course, that the late Princess of Wales had a labour of 16 hours to give birth to Prince William at this very Lindo wing some 31 years ago. So people are waiting. The hundreds, I don't think I've ever seen quite so many journalists in nearly 40 years as there are here this evening. Hundreds of journalists from around the world and well-wishers, and certainly if there is any further news during the programme, we will bring it to you.
We'll be back with you then, if indeed that happens. Nick, thank you very much indeed. In the meantime, let's turn to our correspondent Daniela Relf, who's at Buckingham Palace for us now, and just remind us of the protocol then in terms of how this news will be broken.
Well, Kate, the attention may be on the hospital for now, but the focus will quickly switch here to Buckingham Palace once the baby is born, as it's here that the formal announcement will be made. And there will be a real sense of theatre and choreography to that announcement. A piece of Buckingham Palace headed notepaper signed by the doctors will leave the hospital there once the baby is born. It will be put in a car and driven with a police escort here to Buckingham Palace. It'll be taken into the main gates of the palace put into a frame there and placed on an easel just inside the palace gate there. And this is the way that the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge want the announcement to be made. They want it to have a nod to historical precedent, for it to be traditional. They don't want it being announced via Twitter or Facebook, even email, if at all possible. They want a more traditional approach to announcing the birth of third in line to the throne. So if things go to plan, if the baby is born during daylight hours, we'll see the easel with the announcement on the Buckingham Palace forecourt here.
Daniela, thank you. Every online household in the UK will be asked to actively decide whether pornography should be blocked from their internet accounts under changes announced by David Cameron. The Prime Minister says online pornography is corroding childhood and must be tackled, but experts warn it could give parents a false sense of security, as our technology correspondent Rowan Ketland-Jones reports.
How far should the government go to keep children safe from the dangers of the internet? Balancing free expression with security is a complex business, but the government's been under pressure to do more. Parent groups say it's far too easy for children to come across pornography on the internet.
We get parents with children of all ages, so including preschool children, seeing these sorts of images, accessing hardcore pornography, not the sort of pornography that teenagers a few years ago would have looked at. This is hardcore pornography readily available to children of all ages, and that is becoming a real worry for parents.
The internet has transformed our lives for the better.
Today, the Prime Minister said internet companies needed to do more. He said every broadband customer would be asked to choose whether or not to install a family-friendly filter.
When it comes to internet pornography, parents have been left too much on their own, and I'm determined to put that right. We all need to work together, both to prevent children from accessing pornography and to educate them about keeping safe online.
Internet suppliers say they already provide parental controls. It's whether they should be switched on by default, which is controversial. By the end of next year, all new and existing customers will see something like this. They'll have to make a choice if they don't want anything blocked. After some argument, they've now agreed that the yes box will be ticked in advance. But they insist that even after agreeing, customers will still get a menu, allowing them to choose exactly what's blocked. As well as pornography, they'll be able to filter out sites containing extreme violence or those encouraging self-harm or suicide. But some describe default filters as creeping censorship and warn that they could make parents complacent.
The current government is very much against the nanny state, but this is the biggest nanny state move we've ever seen, and it sort of implies that it's not the parents' responsibility to raise children, but the internet industry's responsibility to raise children.
There's not enough being done today.
Last week, the Prime Minister met the families of April Jones and Tia Sharp, whose killers both viewed child abuse images online. He's now putting pressure on search engines to do more to block access to such images. But some believe the focus needs to be on beefing up the police response. Jim Gamble, former head of CEOP, said you're focusing on the wrong thing. You need to focus more on police action against the people who perpetrate these child abuse images.
I think we'd make a mistake if we thought that there's a one-bullet solution. This is just about policing and policing the internet. If the internet companies won't play ball, then we're going to struggle, and we need them to return nil searches when people are putting in disgusting items to the internet.
Politicians have found that regulating the internet and making it safe for children is easier said than done, but the government insists that what's been announced today will prove a big step forward. Rory Ketland-Jones, BBC News.
Now, today has been the hottest day of the year in the UK since July 2006, with temperatures hitting more than 33.5 degrees centigrade at Heathrow, where the heat's expected to give way, though, to thunderstorms and cooler temperatures over the coming days, ending the longest heat wave for 7 years. Our correspondent Robert Hall has more details, joining us from central London now. Robert.
Kate, there's always a collective sigh of relief from shoppers and commuters on a day like this. It was already hot, and now I can testify it's getting more and more humid. Communities down on the south coast and in the Channel Islands felt those thunderstorms last night, quite violent ones, and it does seem that our taste of the Mediterranean is drawing to a close, at least for the time being. From the manicured parkland of our cities to the meadows of our countryside, the British landscape has been scorched by temperatures which have climbed steadily and which are about to turn tropical. Watching his grassland turn brown at Newton Ferrers in Devon, dairy farmer John Sherrill says even a brief respite from this heat would be welcome.
Initially it wasn't too bad. After last year's very wet summer, I think a lot of farmers were quite glad to have a dry spell to get some of their grass harvesting done, silage and hay. But now the grass has completely stopped growing and it's starting to burn off.
Today the mercury rose highest in the southeast of England. Sensors at Heathrow Airport registering 33.5 degrees Celsius, the highest summer temperature since 2006, when thermometers hit 36.5 degrees at Wisley in Surrey.
I used to live in Cyprus. It's actually feeling hotter than it was in Cyprus, seriously.
Got ice creams and food and drinks. I mean, beautiful park. What more could you want?
Not as hot on Merseyside, but hot enough for one of Liverpool's newest schools to be closed. Classroom temperatures at Gateacre School had hit 30 degrees, and the head teacher said conditions had become unreasonable. That decision is supported by those who've renewed their calls for a maximum legal temperature in schools to protect students and staff.
The school's capital programme should actually have some additional funding in so that schools can start to put in provision that can actually adapt to these high temperatures.
But just when children and parents are heading away from the classrooms for the summer break, change is on the way. Last week, the high-level flow of air called the jet stream was flowing north of us and holding our hot weather in place. Now it's moved south, and many of us are in for a soaking.
Really intense rain falling onto parched and very hard ground that's going to run off and could well cause some flooding problems.
Tonight, those near enough to water were taking full advantage. From tomorrow, a more traditional British summer will give many more of us a chance to cool off. So those people who've been dealing with grass fires or the health risks associated with the hot weather, yeah, that's pretty good news. Not such good news for families heading off for UK-based holidays, but don't be too downcast. They tell me that between the showers, it'll still feel quite pleasant.
Robert, thank you very much. Detectives have begun a murder inquiry after a woman's body was found in a suitcase in North London. The discovery was made yesterday afternoon by police who were called to a wooded area of Mill Hill. Officers are trying to identify the woman, who's been described as a young adult. Now, last night, then, he won the greatest cycling competition on earth. Today, Britain's Chris Froome has been talking about his victory in the 100th Tour de France. He said he was overwhelmed with emotion to become the second Briton to win the race after Sir Bradley Wiggins, of course. Here's our sports editor, David Bond.
Quiet and understated, Chris Froome is an unlikely new hero for British sport. But after winning the Tour de France in such emphatic fashion, he is poised to become one of cycling's biggest stars. Today, Froome could at last reflect on a gruelling 3 weeks in the saddle. So what was it like to ride into Paris wearing the prized yellow jersey?
Nothing could have prepared me for that. It really was just, I was overwhelmed with emotion. I could feel myself just sort of welling up with tears, riding with my teammates. Just coming up to the finish line there, it really was a special moment.
There is the winner of the Tour de France.
Froome's victory is the first since the Lance Armstrong doping scandal. He recognises trust is in short supply.
I understand where the scepticism is coming from and why people have doubts, but I think, I mean, it is really sad for us having to answer these questions when we know we've worked extremely hard to get here, and there's nothing. Cycling really has turned a new page.
There was little doubt among Froome's travelling support on the Champs-Élysées last night. By delivering back-to-back Tour wins, he and Bradley Wiggins have taken British cycling to a new level. After so many betrayals, cycling desperately needs new heroes it can believe in. So what Chris Froome achieved here in Paris yesterday was not only another great British triumph, it was potentially a watershed moment for the sport. And for Africa too. Born in Kenya, this is where he learned to ride, on the dirt tracks and trails just outside Nairobi. Froome is the first rider raised in Africa to win the Tour de France. He says his talent was shaped here by this man, his friend and first coach.
I'm proud when he says that. Everybody could be proud when somebody wearing the yellow jersey and winning the biggest race in the world. And he's one of the top riders in the world now. When they talk about Kinja being the mentor, you know, it's just a bonus.
This was Froome's bonus, a new car from his team sponsors. He will never be a natural member of the sporting A-list, but with at least 5 more tours in his sights, this is unlikely to be the end of his remarkable story. David Bond, BBC News in Paris.
The time now then 18 minutes past 6, and our main story this evening. The Duchess of Cambridge is in labour in a central London hospital. Her husband is at her side. Crowds have gathered outside waiting for news of the birth of the royal baby who'll be third in line to the throne.
Later on BBC London News, after a record number of grass fires in the capital this summer, we join Surrey's fire chiefs on patrol. And a year on from his 2012 glory, David Weir talks to us about returning to the Olympic Park.
An international operation's been launched to collect and save the seeds of wild plants genetically related to some of our most important food crops. Scientists say it is crucial to protecting our future food supply from what they say could be the devastating impact of climate change. 25 countries are involved in the scheme, collecting seeds from 450 species of plant, where they're concentrating on the most widely consumed crops like rice, wheat and potato. Jeremy Cook reports from Italy, one of the countries taking part in the project.
The landscape of northern Italy. An agricultural patchwork forged over millennia of human endeavour. Modern crops across the world have been bred to thrive in highly specific environmental conditions. But if the climate changes, our super specialised crops may suffer or fail as weather patterns shift.
It is then a question of food security, and the answer may lie not in intensively farmed, highly cultivated areas, but in wilder places where the ancient ancestors of our 21st century crops are still thriving. Places like this where we're told there is a treasure trove of untapped genetic material.
In dozens of countries then, the hunt is on for the wild ancestors of our most important food crops. The DNA of these seeds is both the original blueprint and potentially the future of world farming. Here, wild relatives of wheat, oats and carrots.
They contain characteristics that might help the crop adapt to climate change and other future scenarios. They might have the gene for drought tolerance or a tolerance against a certain pest or disease.
It's a gold mine.
It's a gold mine, an untapped gold mine.
The first job is to find examples of the 450 species on the global most wanted list, and then the painstaking work to collect the seed. It's a process which will engage scientists in dozens of countries around the world.
I think it is important because in this way we can have a genetic pool in order to have genetic material for breeders, for agriculture.
For the future?
For the future, yes. Why not?
Once collected, the seeds are bagged and tagged and shipped out. And they arrive here at Kew's Millennium Seed Bank. They're receiving shipments from Tonga to Kyrgyzstan, from the Falkland Islands to Mexico, to form a global resource for scientists and plant breeders to create new, robust food crops. There is urgency here. Human encroachment means some wild crop species are endangered. Their seeds must be taken now, before it's too late. Jeremy Cook, BBC News, Northern Italy.
A 25-year-old Ukrainian, Pavlo Lapshin, has been charged with what police are calling the terrorist-related murder of the Birmingham pensioner Mohammed Salim. The 75-year-old grandfather was fatally stabbed in April as he walked home alone after worshipping at a mosque in the Smallheath area of the city. Mr Lapshin will appear at Westminster Magistrates Court tomorrow. Well, our Home Affairs correspondent Matt Prodger is with us now. Just what more can you tell us at this stage?
Well, Pavlo Lapshin is a Ukrainian student who was on a placement with a Birmingham software firm called Delcam. He started that placement in April, just a few days before he allegedly murdered Mohammed Salim as the 75-year-old grandfather was walking home from a local mosque. Now, there were 2 Ukrainian students with the firm. They were initially arrested by police last Thursday in connection with a series of explosions at mosques in Walsall, Wolverhampton and Tipton. Now, one man was released earlier today. Pavlo Lapshin has been charged with Mohammed Salim's murder, but he hasn't been charged in connection with the attacks on the mosques. Now, West Midlands police say that they don't believe that there's any ongoing threat from this case. They've been speaking to Ukrainian officials. They'll be travelling to Ukraine in the next few days. Mr. Lapshin will appear at Westminster Magistrates Court tomorrow morning. That's the court which handles terrorist-related charges.
OK, Matt, thank you. Let's get more now on the Duchess of Cambridge, who's in a central London hospital after going into labour. There is, of course, great anticipation among millions of people across the country, perhaps nowhere more so, though, than in her home village of Bucklebury in Berkshire. Our correspondent John Kay is there for us now. John.
Yes, Kate, the Duchess has spent much of the last month back here at home with her parents just down the road, preparing for this moment, and tonight they are waiting for a call from the hospital. In fact, it feels like everybody in Bucklebury is waiting for a call. This is the church where a baby Catherine Middleton was baptised 3 decades ago, and when there is news, the bells here will be rung. I should warn you, there are some flashing images in this report. Bucklebury has seen 1,000 years of kings and queens, but this royal birth will be something entirely new. The park, just down the road from the Middletons' family home. They could soon be bringing their new grandchild here. There's even a castle, so the baby feels at home. And the neighbours are very excited.
Everyone's always so miserable at the moment and so down. It's just so wonderful to have some exciting news and a new generation in the royals. It's really exciting.
Friend for him?
Friend for him, definitely. Best friend.
Best mate?
He's called Harry, so...
Oh, you've got one of those. You'll fit in perfectly.
I feel very sorry for her, all the attention she's having. You know, it's a pretty hard job, having the whole world watching her.
Hard enough having a baby on your own.
Yes.
Everyone else.
You know that, do you?
Well, I've been close to it, but not quite there.
One of Kate's last engagements was at this children's hospice in Hampshire. The staff who met her that day have been on tenterhooks since they heard she was in labour.
Oh, I was like a child. I was jumping up and down. It was just ridiculous. Because you do feel like you know her, because she's been here and standing face to face chatting to her. She feels like a friend who's about to actually go and give birth.
For the crowds at the palace, it's worth waiting to witness a moment of history.
Get the news firsthand, it'd be brilliant, yeah.
Such an exciting, historic day and everyone's buzzing, it's like.
It'd be great to be here for that.
We're leaving Wednesday, so we hope it happens before that.
Right.
Do we want it to be a boy or a girl? Boy,
girl!
They will know soon enough. And then there's the name.
Bob.
John Kay.
OK, let's get the very latest from the hospital in central London. Our royal correspondent Nicholas Witchell. I mean, due to protocol, Nick, we are unlikely to hear anything more now, aren't we, until the formal announcement?
I think not. Welcome back, in a sense, to the street of contrasting sides. On that side, the Lindo Wing side, all is calm and silent. On this side, where the public and the media are, it is kind of good-natured bedlam, I think just about sums it up. There are scores and scores of cameramen, photographers, reporters and members of the public waiting here. 12 and a half hours now since she was admitted to hospital, 11 hours since the Kensington Palace statement saying that she was in the early stages of labour, and we are not, I sense, in any way close to an announcement of a birth.
Nick, thank you. It's time for a look at the weather. It's been glorious for many, but obviously extremely hot, Thomas, with thunderstorms to come.
That's right. In fact, hottest day since 2006. Today we managed to get so far around 33.5 degrees. That's the last time we checked at Heathrow. Could go a touch higher, by the time we're through with the day, and other areas across the southeast got up to the low 30s as well. Now, because of this heat and, of course, the humidity, and you may have noticed just how close it feels outside, thunderstorms are on the way. Now, these are the temperatures at 9 p.m, still 29 in London, the high 20s across northern England. Of course, it's much fresher across Scotland, and in the northeast of England it has been a much fresher day, so no heat wave for us here. But let's talk about these storms. There might be 1 or 2 storms this evening, and then more of them will be making landfall along the south coast and eventually drifting north by the time we get to the early hours of Tuesday morning. A very sticky night. We could be breaking temperature records as far as the nighttime temperatures are concerned, so it could be a very, very warm night. The record's actually 23.9. We're expecting 23 in London. Anyway, back to the storms. Here they are across the south of the UK. Now, at this stage, we're not anticipating big storms across Northern Ireland, Scotland or Northern England, not at this time in the morning. But you have to remember that there's been a heatwave for a very long time. The atmosphere is full of energy, full of moisture, full of humidity, and these thunderstorms could spark off at any time. They will be quite widespread across the UK during the course of Tuesday. Flash flooding, large hail, very, very gusty winds. So with that, there'll be some problems, local problems, not widespread, but do stay tuned to weather forecasts because the weather could be quite vicious in your local area, even as far as Wednesday. So this weather warning from the Met Office is as far as Wednesday for those downpours, flash flooding certainly on the cards in some areas. So that's it, a wild 2 or 3 days.
OK, Thomas, thank you very much indeed. And that is it from us here on BBC One Now. We'll join our news teams where you are. Have a very good evening. Bye-bye.